Before the whiskey, yacht, and businesses, Conor McGregor was just a young lad from Ireland looking to make it big in the UFC. He was ruthless and made a quick name for himself with his exceptional trash-talking abilities. But despite all that, it was his confidence that separated him from the rest. Keep watching this video as we tell you a tale of his crazy confidence when he offered the boss a $3 million bet. First up, even Dana is hesitant. Dana White is quite the gambler himself. He loves making big bets on practically anything, and when he first met the notorious Conor McGregor, he was just blown away by the confidence of the man. When Conor first made his debut in the UFC, he wasn't the same flashy character we see today. He was determined and focused to become a UFC champion. Anyway, it took the Irishman about 2 years to wipe out the featherweight division, and in 2015, he was gearing up for his first championship bout against the #1 pound-for-pound fighter, Jose Aldo. Unfortunately, Jose had to pull out because of a fractured rib, leaving Conor without an opponent, but he didn't make a big deal out of it. All he did was ask Dana for a replacement matching him against an equally, if not better fighter, Chad Mendes. Now, Chad might have gone by money at the UFC, but it was McGregor doing all the talking. He was so confident that he went up to the boss and former owner Lorenzo and asked whether he could bet $3 million on himself. The terms were, if he'd win the fight in the second round of the fight, he'd take home everything. Unfortunately, the bet couldn't go through since fighters aren't allowed to bet on themselves, which makes sense. But then he pitched the same offer to Dana that sort of rattled the boss. Talking to the media on one occasion, Dana said things like how he loves betting, but even that was a bit too much for him. For a guy that gives $250,000 to friends without any hesitation, Conor managed to corner the boss of the promotion. Talk about being confident. So what happened? Well, we're already sure you know what happened, but let's give you a recap. Conor didn't only outclass Mendes, but he also won the fight in the second round of the match. Can you imagine how much he could have made if he actually went through with the bet? And big bets aren't an uncommon thing in the UFC. Remember when Drake bet a cool million on Izzy at UFC 276? But just the idea of $3 million, and that too on yourself, is just crazy. Imagine the pressure. Anyway, you could almost argue that the Notorious is psychic or something. First, he announced how he'd win against Mendes, then he did it again against Jose Aldo, and that too in just 13 seconds of the first round. When both fighters were facing each other before the fight, Conor claims he saw Jose's right fist twitching. The Notorious said how that was a subtle tell for him and how unloading that right hand would indicate his downfall in the fight. He announced how Jose would swing a crazy right and give him an opening, and that's when the Notorious would capitalize. We all thought he was just trying to get in his head or something, but guess what? That's exactly what happened. Jose swung a crazy left, leaving him a bit off balance, giving Conor an opening to swing a brutal fist landing right on his chin. He's called Mystic Mac for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. What's next for the Irishman? Well, we've heard a lot of UFC fans claiming McGregor is no longer hungry for success and the money has changed him, and frankly speaking, we believed that too. But after seeing how determined he is to turn things around and make a comeback, we've sort of changed our minds. Training like that after snapping your leg with millions in the bank account says a lot about hunger. Imagine you have a couple $100 million in the bank and you break your leg fighting inside the cage. After that exhausting recovery period, it'd almost be impossible to want to train again, let alone fight. But the Irishman is in great shape. We've seen him working the pads, throwing deadly kicks with the same leg he broke. It's really starting to look like we're going to see the old Conor McGregor return to the octagon. And let's not forget his crazy idea of becoming the first three-weight division champion. Now, we know that it's not going to be an easy task, but if there's anyone who can pull off such an incredible feat, it just has to be McGregor. Anyway, let's see when we get to see him in the cage again. A lot of big names have already started expressing an interest in fighting the Irishman, but it'll probably be another 6 to 7 months until we see him fight again. Charles Oliveira, Kamaru Usman, Jorge Masvidal, and even Jake Paul are calling him out in the hopes of getting a huge money fight. But still, we're not sure how all this will play out with Dana. Last we heard, he was trying to match him up against Nate Diaz for a trilogy fight. For crying out loud, Dana, no one wants to see that fight. Make it interesting. Give him a shot at the welterweight title. Let's see if he still has the hunger and passion to become the first three-weight champion of the world. Time for some more news on the UFC. Up next, Poirier weighs in on who McGregor should fight next. Even though it was the Poirier fight in which McGregor snapped his leg, it's really nice to see how he still thinks the Irishman should get a good fight for his comeback. The great return of Conor McGregor. But will it be so great considering how Poirier thinks Conor should fight Justin Gaethje? Now, we're not saying the Notorious doesn't have enough firepower to take on someone like Justin, it's just that we don't think it's a good fight for Conor, mainly because Justin has been active the whole time McGregor has been recovering, so there's obviously a difference in their tempos. Justin is used to fast-paced matches, while McGregor will have to adjust to the pace. And that adjustment will matter even more because Gaethje is a really aggressive fighter. Even in his last fight against lightweight GOAT Charles Oliveira, he managed to drop him in the first round of the fight, but failed to capitalize. So while we're really rooting for Conor to come back and dominate again, we think Dustin is being a little too clever by suggesting broadcasting that fight. So is Conor the hot topic now? Seems like no one can get enough of Conor these days ever since he's announced he's returning to the UFC. Even longtime rival and possible opponent Nate Diaz couldn't help but talk about the Notorious. Talking to the press, Nate revealed he's the perfect blueprint for anyone willing to beat Conor McGregor. And what's funny is that it wasn't him who drafted the blueprint, he actually claims it was laid down by Floyd Mayweather. Apparently, Diaz thinks the best way to beat Conor is to let him punch himself out. In other words, just keep your guard up and let him exhaust himself with his own punches. And after the second round, you'll get a very tired Conor McGregor who isn't capable of defending himself, getting any fighter not only an easy win over the Irishman, but a giant paycheck as well. All that sounds great, but is Nate forgetting what happens when Conor McGregor actually lands a punch? There were legitimate rumors of Jose Aldo not waking up for days after he got slept by Conor. Now, we just made that up, but still not a really revealing blueprint if you ask us. Finally, why is this guy such a big deal? So now it's a big deal if someone goes 3-0 in the UFC. He'll get the golden treatment along with the title fight handed over to him on a plate. Doesn't make sense at all. Khamzat is 4-0. Why don't we see his title fight anywhere? Why is Alex Pereira getting a title fight against Izzy? And yes, we know the fight isn't confirmed yet, but literally everyone on the management, including Dana White, has pretty much given the go-ahead for the match to happen. It really makes no sense, to be honest. Guys that actually deserve title shots are sidelined, whilst a guy with a decent amount of hype gets to jump the queue. We're not sure what goes through Dana's mind when he sets the fights, but seriously, this has to stop. There are so many guys in the division who haven't only been around longer, but they've also proved again and again that they deserve the fight. Anyway, we're hoping he gets knocked out so everyone realizes he's nothing but hype. That's it from our side, folks. So what do you think? Does Conor still have the hunger to dominate the UFC, or is his next appearance going to prove he's done? Let us know in the comments below. Remember, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more exciting videos in the future. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you next time.